and on the other side, and they have got quite a complex story. First of all, because they were surely not here. So that's a new place, which is a result of a restoration in the 1930s. They were found in the choir, but it's even possible that they were vaulted into the choir from another place, but surely from the church. So quite a lot of changes occurred. We also know that some elements of the carving is recarved, but not as modern restoration, but already in the Baroque time. But again, investigation has revealed that there are significant medieval traces. First of all, the entrance, this big gate leading to the backyard, then the vaulted space, which is the entrance hall, and if you look inside, again you see the sitting niches, the sedile on both sides. And there is a little bit further one door, but there was also another to the other side, which is leading to the side rooms on the ground floor. And these were the vaulted.
This is Mary Magdalene Church.
Then later emerged into the parish church, and as I've already mentioned, at one phase in 1390, a division was drawn between the two parishes. It clearly shows that originally it was not a territorial division. It was based on the ethnic division of the community members, but then with the development of church hierarchy and so on, and of course the urban business, also this is the issue, the peaceful or less peaceful relationship between the German and the Hungarian members of the urban community, such a division line has been drawn. Now the church itself is also a very complex story, because synagogues of Buddha, which can be visited, it's in the house, it's one single space. We may say that from the architectural point of view, there is no such as the synagogue architecture. So there's no particular building type you would identify. What you can identify are these details. In some places even more details. You can identify in some places the gallery of the woman, or as I said, the decorative elements with the inscriptions. And because there is a white church at Óbuda, Fehér Egyháza, Alba Ecclesia, and there is the Székesfehérvár, which is Stuhlweissenburg or Alba Regia, Alba Regalis. It's better to mix that here as well, because we don't believe that what is there is anything. Even in a period, a very important royal residence. So towards the end of the 12th century, we know that the king spent quite a lot of time here, and particularly important holidays, let's say feast days or Easter, which always shows in a case of an itinerant kingdom that where is the place where you spend Christmas or Easter or this shipyard or factory island, which was the island of the governor of Pannonia province in the Roman time, with a very significant kind of residence. And that's the place where the queen should be buried. It was designed for her as the burial place. So imagine this is like a ruler's residence. You have got the castle, the residence, and you have got a big ecclesiastical institution, the nunnery of the poor clerks, and that's a burial place for the queen. So in a way, we may say that Elizabeth started to build up her own cult. She was a very devoted person, so we know about pilgrimage and donations and so on, but you can clearly see that there was an attempt to build up that. So what happened here, that when the new housing estates were erected, monument protection managed to save this island, the main square, but not more than that. Those other small houses which were not so nice and they were by that time really in bad condition, they were not saved, they were just demolished. So it is now a kind of strange zone. It's very nice, there used to be festivals here and things like that, so it's working otherwise quite well. This otherwise would be a very standard thing. So this is a country nice Baroque style, prestige, garden and so on. And then you have got the economic buildings, the barns, the storage buildings and so on. Here it is in the courtyard, and then later, more or less later, the urban development happened. So they started rather here. By the way, they contributed.
Yes. But it was still a parish church until the end of the Middle Ages.
Church
of St. James.
St. James, exactly. Yeah. So, and here you can see a very
And of course there was a bridge there before. There had been a bridge on that side since the 12th century. So it's one of the earliest of these steel bridges that connect across the sea.
You can both see them here under the gutter. King Ferdinand with his wife Anne. Some people say that he is giving the flower to his wife, as that it's very romantic, that he is giving the flower to his wife. Some art historians say it's not that way, it's the other way. That the queen is giving the flower to the king because she is giving him the descendants and the heritage of her own dynasty, that she, as the Princess of Bohemia and Hungary, is giving the succession to the Habsburgs.
Buddha about these layers of history which are more or less visible, and then we also talked about the importance of sight and how Buddha is being kind of repopulated, or there are these attempts to kind of turn it back into a seat of government, or at least its various sort of offices and institutions, mostly unsuccessful. Here we have something where the kind of seat of government was on this site, permanently from the beginning. In fact, this is Prague from about 8th, 9th century, and certainly well established into 10th century. This is where the beginnings of the city of Prague are here, before the old town, which we were just looking at from the hill and talking about. Complexity underneath. Everywhere you look, you can see bits of Romanesque, Gothic, Neo-Gothic, Classicism, very advanced modernism. Everything is here. And also in terms of meaning. So we have, on the one hand, quite clearly, we said we have the cathedral. Here's the Archbishop. That was the old Archbishop Palace. You can see parts of the Romanesque wall and the Romanesque columns. I'll point something else in a moment, which is also
of the castle over there. And the first one we can see is St. George's Church with the convent of Benedictine nuns. This is a very interesting institution. It was founded around 970 as the first known monastic institution in Bohemia, and it was a female convent. We see it maybe seems too much Romanesque because it was really purified or renovated around the year 1900, so it really looks Romanesque. Because the convent of Benedictine nuns I was speaking about was abolished in 1782 by Emperor Joseph II.
Where we are now in relation to where we were this morning. Do you remember we were standing, this is South Transept, and you can see what I was saying inside the exhibition about Wenceslas' chapel sort of being a kind of church within a church almost, that it's got its own shape and it really creates this incursion into the body of the cathedral. Founded, his body never moved, and so of course as part of the rebuilding of the cathedral, the shrine, the kind of creation of this chapel became very important. This part, as you know, because Peter Parler took over at the level of the arcade, but also about 2 bays from here, and built everything that goes westwards. So the previous chapel, the wall of the previous chapel, this chapel, and the whole chapel here.
Another task to do, to build a new bridge, and he built it 15 years in fact. And well, this is what I read, that there is somewhere in inscription that the foundation stones of the bridge was laid down in 1357 in the 9th month on the 7th day at 5 o'clock at 31 minutes. Because you see that this is a number, exactly, from both sides. And the courtly astronomer told Charles that this would be a very successful date to start a bridge. And you see, it is still standing, so the astronomer was right. And I suggest that if you build a bridge, you select a good moment to it. Probably in the 12th century, they didn't have such a good astronomer.
The story of this place, of the town hall, begins in 1338 when 5 houses formed the complex town hall were bought by the city with permission of the Czech king John Luxembourg, Jan Luxemburski, Czech language, and they were reconstructed in one whole complex. And 12th centuries, but back then, in the Middle Ages, this was no underground nor cellar. This used to be a completely normal house, but Prague has always had problems with floods and the river in general, and people back then in the Middle Ages were dealing with this problem by increasing the level of the terrain artificially with everything they
The inscription, which is very correct, so you see 1881, that is the restoration just below the coat farm, you see, then on the Domini Reroman, Domini 1881 GF, that is the dating. So, well.
The websites later. The first one, the database of medieval Czech sources in translation, Vašek is actually taking part in it as well. It's by far